Hey, did you guys know I actually fell down the stairs the other day?
Oh.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Well, it was actually an escalator, so I ended up tumbling for half an hour. Let's get this going.
That's it. No sympathy for you.
Hi, this is Jeff D.
Hi, my name is Gary Savard.
Check it out, Bubba Brinkman.
I am the Supreme Irreverend Dr. Randy Tyson.
Hi, this is Jody Emery.
Hi, I'm R.N. Rod.
Hi, I'm James Rand.
Hi, this is Phil Ferguson.
Hi, I'm Michael Shermer.
Hi, I'm Eli Bosnick.
Hi, this is David Silverman from American Atheists, and I took a left at the Valley.
And that was the best turn I ever made.
I know we shouldn't have to scream that we're atheists. You know, we don't have non-astrologers and all that. But with the religious people taking over the world, I mean, we can either speak up or be pushed into a corner.
I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.
Coming at you from some covert location, this is Left of the Valley. My name is Kevin, and I used to be someone's imaginary friend. Joining me as usual are your local atheists that make you realize that consciousness is that annoying time between naps. She once told me she'd kill for a Nobel Peace Prize, Nancy.
Oh. I was waiting for something really strange and weird, and that was so close to reality. I just, okie dokie. Hi, everybody.
And he likes to reminisce with people he doesn't know, Scott.
Yay. We're here. We're all here. All of us.
All of us imaginary friends.
Guys, welcome back. I hope you had a good week.
Yeah, it was pretty good. The weather, I think we had, 15 minutes of sunshine on Wednesday or something.
Yeah, typical Fraser Valley springtime.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're calling for nothing but rain for the next week or so.
Man.
We got a lot of things on our plate today. We'll be playing the interview with Cara Santa Maria later. But for now, let's do a bit of chit-chat. Did you guys hear that, of course, another attack on Paris?
Yeah, on the Champs-Elysees. That was really
saw that
sad.
in the news.
Yeah, the gentleman, and I stress the truth when I'm saying that, his name was Karim Shafri, and he was shot and killed. He shot and killed a cop, and he opened fire with a Kalashnikov rifle, apparently, in a shopping district, in a posh shopping district in Paris. And ISIS right away claimed responsibility, and this guy had a lengthy criminal history.
Yeah, Paris has been under attack. It's like, the stress of not knowing when you go someplace. But I think it's probably like the English in World War II. You take each day as it is, and you don't let things get you down. But it is a stress, to live in a city that is, under sniping attacks, almost all the time.
France has been, I think, the attitude of the French has been defiant towards Islam. It has really been defiant. It's that thing that relax, take a chill pill, and that's how the French are. And I admire them for doing so instead of panicking. If these kind of attacks were to happen in the U.S., it'd be DEFCON 4 every time, and missiles will be shooting everywhere. And I think that's why France is a bit of a target, because let's face it, terrorists are in the business of creating fear. So you have to make sure that the bravest of them all is the target, right?
Yeah, and of course, with the election coming up, let's wish everybody, let's wish them the best. Yeah,
the French have never given in to terrorism, though.
No, they haven't.
There was that one flight where they landed and they stormed the aircraft. They landed for fuel and they stormed the aircraft, and I think there were 4 hijackers, and they killed all 4 hijackers. They lost 2 passengers. But it turned out that the aircraft had explosives on board, and they were planning on dive bombing Paris with a full load of fuel.
Nice.
So, the French do not play nice with terrorists. They do not play nice with the bad guys.
The spirit of the French resistance lives on, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I really wish the popular image in especially in American media of the French being cowardly, I really wish that would disappear. Just because, when Germany invaded France in World War II, and that's where it stands from, right? Of course, they had to somewhat cooperate with the invading army because they were just not prepared to repel it. And that is since then, they were, of course, there was underground resistance, right?
They also had that underground resistance.
Yes,
that was the most successful,
So the image of the French being cowardly, and I've seen that, and being part French-Canadian myself, it really irks me to see this kind of image in the media, in North America anyway. I was just interviewed on The Wayward Atheist.
Oh, how did that go?
Actually, it went fairly well. These guys, they have an interesting podcast, and they're from all over the place. One of them is in Ottawa, one of them is Nova Scotia. There's a fellow in Alabama. They have a very interesting show. The conversation kind of took a bit of a serious tone because we were discussing things like North Korea and should we interfere and stuff like that. And of course, knowing me, and you guys know that I like to play devil's advocate, I threw a couple of objections and contrary opinion in there, and it led to a very, very serious but interesting discussion. So that should be airing fairly soon.
Oh.
And
Very good.
You can hear me on their show there. And of course, we will have also the Wayward Atheist, one of their hosts, Dave, aka the Great White North, coming on our show fairly soon. So that should be fun.
Excellent.
Let's see. Queen Lizzie is celebrating her 91st birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, she is the longest reigning monarch. She became queen in 1952.
She's held up really well, hasn't she, through the years?
Yeah.
She takes her little purse and just keeps going.
Longest reigning monarch now.
Yeah.
She is right now. Right now, she's the oldest monarch ever since the death of Thailand's king, which was last year. So now she is the oldest monarch and longest reigning monarch in the history of England. And we got to talk about this. Bill O'Reilly.
Oh, do we have to talk about Bill O'Reilly?
Bill O'Reilly fired. Yay! And this is where I tap this. The New York Times article, there was a New York Times article April 1st that revealed that Fox News settled with 5 women for about $13 million over sexual advances and sexual misconduct from the O'Reilly Factor host. Ever since that, over 50 advertisers pulled out of the O'Reilly Factors.
Ouch.
And which prompted, of course, a vacation, quote-unquote vacation for Bill. And soon after that, Fox announced that he wasn't coming back, and good riddance.
Absolutely. Good. Even though he has 4 million viewers a year. And I was listening to a report or watching a report this morning. I'm just wondering whether this is the death knell and the eventual decline of Fox News, because they're under, if I understand it correctly, they're under federal investigation because the amounts of money that they put out for Mr. O'Reilly and the way that they did it may not have been transparent enough, for investors.
Wow.
I don't know exactly how all that works. I'm just kind of giving you the highlights. So they are under investigation, and I wonder whether with that and the $25 million severance that Mr. Bill got, and the fact that they're not they're not in favor. I'm putting it badly, but at this point they're in transition of who's going to take over that spot. I'm just wondering whether or not it's like. I wonder how the Murdochs are going to react.
He was
to
the
all
cornerstone of Fox News.
Yeah,
he really was.
Yeah.
Bill got $25 million in severance after basically screwing up.
Ooh, you suck.
That's right.
How do you get these jobs? I want one of these jobs.
I tell you exactly how you get these jobs. When you get the job, if you can negotiate your contract so that you get a year's salary if you're fired, make sure you get one hell of a good yearly salary.
Indeed.
Wow, 25. I know his lifestyle is going to be so crimped after this because, wow.
I'm sure he's aching for money right now. The funny thing about Bill O'Reilly, like I said, he's the cornerstone of Fox, of the network. The median age for the O'Reilly show was between 68 to 70 years old. That's a fairly elder audience.
But those are the hardcore conservatives. They're the older white guys that still live in the 50s, and they want to return to 1949 so they can live the whole 50s from scratch all over again.
Well, I hope.
And that may, because that's his core audience, you just wonder, okay, well, is Fox going to decline because that readership is declining?
I hope so. I hope it was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, me too.
And you know what, Bill? Do us all a favor. Stay retired, okay? Just disappear into the sunset. Enjoy your 25 million plus whatever money you have there. Just go live on a beach somewhere. Just disappear. Do us all a favor.
Happy suntans, Bill.
Yes.
Stay off the airways.
Speaking of horrible things, the UN elected Saudi Arabia to a commission on the status of women.
That's like the fox in the hen house, isn't
it? I mean, so they're supposed to be part of this commission from going on from 2018 to 2022.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now?
Why?
WTF? What the hell? You know?
But why?
Well, I have no idea.
And will they have any women on the panel?
Probably not.
No.
Not in their program. Saudi Arabia was recently re-elected to the UN on the Human Rights Council, and that's different. And now, on top of that, they're elected to a commission on the status of women.
That's right, because they understand human rights so well.
And you know, the funny thing is, out of 54 countries that voted on this, it was a secret vote. But we do know that apparently out of 54 countries, apparently 47 of them voted yes, and that's like 79% of them.
How do you pay off 47 with oil?
I guess what the problem here is that we don't understand the criteria for what they're voting for. I mean, it rails against common sense that a country that basically doesn't have a good human rights record could be on the Council for Human Rights. A country that oppresses women would be on the Council for Women's Advocacy and Rights. But what are the criteria that these votes are taking place under? What are they looking for? What checkboxes have to be checked off in order for you to say yay or nay?
It's a good question. Sometimes, you know, I'm going to kind of put this on a layman's level, but you know, when you have a child that's kind of unruly and a bit of a bully, sometimes you might want to change the demeanor by giving that child a responsibility. You're in charge of this, hoping that he will take the job seriously. Is this what they're trying to do with Saudi Arabia? Well, by putting them on these councils, maybe kind of forcing them to modernize from their ancient pagan desert god stupid religion.
Well, that's like taking Hitler and putting him at the head of the ADL and saying, now you're going to be really nice to Jewish people, aren't you?
Yeah. You might have a very good point there.
I mean, it's a good theory. I approve of the theory. I just wonder sometimes, and if anyone knows the answer to why Saudi Arabia is now on that council, please
let us
send
know.
Everything to Kevin, left at the Valley.
Please let us know.
3rd floor.
And let's finish.
Corner office.
Let's finish that little chit chat with saying something more positive. Yesterday was the March for Science.
It was.
Over 600 cities in 60 countries took this happening in these countries. Apparently, there was right here in Vancouver. There was over 500 people marching to Science World, and this was, of course, in response to anti-science rhetoric from governments. I mean, you guys remember when our ex-Prime Minister Stephen Harper muzzled the scientists? And, of course, Trump's kind of doing the same thing right now in the States. So I never thought in my life that I would ever come to say to a point where, say, scientists have to revolt and start marching down the street.
Yeah, I saw one of the signs was, I can't believe I'm marching for facts.
Yes! Yes! That's a wonderful, wonderful way to put it.
Yeah. So the question is, I mean, in my mind, the question is, all of the support for science, all of the marching, all of the demonstrations, are minds going to be changed? Are the climate deniers suddenly going to say, well, you know, maybe these people got something here that we're not aware of. Maybe we should reconsider. Is this going to translate into government officials who are climate deniers suddenly saying, okay, we're going to the Paris climate summit?
Not
now,
a snowball's
believers.
chance at the North Pole now. I would say in hell, but with global warming, we're pretty much there.
I mean, that's really at the crux, is to get people to accept scientific facts as facts and not alternative facts.
The problem is that these people take a position, and once people take a position, it's been shown that they'll hold their position, and the more facts you throw at them, the more reason you throw at them, the more you show them the way, they will actually entrench themselves in their position, and they will literally stop listening and not care about the facts.
And as atheists, we understand that all too well. How many of us have had debates with Christians where you show them the facts, but nonetheless, they just say God works in mysterious ways. So it's not surprising in that sense.
Well, in a lot of cases, the deniers are the very religious people you're talking about.
Yes.
So,
oh yeah, of course. I mean, I was watching a video this week. It says, I used to believe the Earth was round, but then I started reading the Bible. Now I understand the Earth is flat. I was like, oh God. Shoot me now.
Yeah, I mean, what gets discouraging is when there's an overwhelming amount of support for something that you should logically support, and then you get a tweet from Trump that says this is a result of small paid groups coming out because they have nothing else to do. They should get jobs or something like that. It's like a complete denial. Another denial of reality.
And it keeps going.
Fingers crossed.
Oh, and in personal news for myself, I'm going to be helping a little place, my folks' coffee place. It's called Wooden Beans, It's a very little coffee place in Agassiz. I want you guys to, if you're in the area, come and encourage us. I mean, we're trying to take this place into maybe a new direction, make it more hip, or better. So if you guys happen to be in Agassiz, go to 7010 Pioneer Avenue and come have a coffee and come chat.
Oh, it's great. It's right in the middle of Agassiz, and it's a great place to stop for a cup of coffee and have a little goodie.
That's where we did our Christmas show.
We did our Christmas show from there, and it's wonderful. There's very comfortable, cozy seating, and it's very sunny. It's bright.
And you're right by Harrison Hot Springs, and as the summer's coming up, why don't you stop in, have a chat, a coffee with us, and then go to the beach. I cannot think of a better day.
No, it's really, and you never can tell. You might have a chance to meet our star celebrity, Kevin. Shake his hand, get his autograph. We'll get little hats, maybe.
I know now that I've met him, I'm starstruck.
Oh, God. Yeah,
we're supposed to encourage people to come to the thing, guys, not discourage them.
Well, you've reached celebrity status. Why not? You can get your little, I turned left at the Valley Hat. We'll think of lots of ways to get people in and have a great cup of coffee and a rest and meet Kevin. Why not?
Let's do this day in history, my dear. You're up.
Well, okie dokie. I tell you what, we're going to do one day of this day in history, and then we're going to go on to something fun. April the 20th was Ask an Atheist Day. Mm-hmm. And Ask an Atheist, it's a national holiday in the States, and it's an opportunity for secular groups across the country to work together to defeat stereotypes about atheism and encourage courteous dialogue. There's a good word. Courteous dialogue between believers and non-believers. And it's intended to be an opportunity for the general public, especially people of faith, to approach non-theists and ask questions about secular life. So in that spirit, Kevin, why don't you tell the world what you did to honor Ask an Atheist Day?
Well, I was on Facebook and I realized a lot of people were saying today is Ask an Atheist Day, so that's exactly what I put on my post. Today is Ask an Atheist Day. Go ahead and ask. And I was surprised by how many people actually shared that.
You got a lot of people asking questions.
Yeah, and a lot of it was very lighthearted and humorous. There were questions like, "What was your baby eating tally for yesterday?" And or "What was your previous religion?" And it was all done in good fun. And the conversation was actually, we had some very good conversations. Not so serious to the point of like those arguments, but we had a lot of fun with that, and it was almost like some nice interaction between theist and non-theist.
It was. I like the idea in several universities. Some of the secular clubs, atheist clubs, humanist clubs, set up a table in the student areas or wherever, public areas, and they have an Ask an Atheist. And those have been. I don't think fisticuffs have broken out in any of them. And I think it's a great way to stimulate a good, lively discussion about who we are and why we are and what we think about the world and what we think about people of various various other religions, and it's a good conversation starter.
We had the typical questions, well, which religion did you come out of and all that. But I think my favorite question was actually, do you have any Grey Poupon? To which I answered, I just ran out. And that was the end of that conversation with that person, and that was it. It was just fun, lighthearted, and I encourage more people to do so.
Exactly. I mean, you can have those great worldly questions.
That's right.
It doesn't have to be about religion. It could just be about anything.
The thought for today, do you have any Grey Poupon?
That's great. Okay, we're going to move on. Usually we do a Quack Watch or a Scam Watch, but today I thought it might be fun to look at the top 10 scams, frauds, and things to watch for.
Do you want the Quack Watch team?
Well, it's kind of a top
I'm putting
10.
It in.
Quack Watch.
There you go.
Your guess.
Okay, there we go. This is from the Better Business Bureau, because they usually compile this every year. This is the Canadian Better Business Bureau, but when I compared scams in Canada and in North America in general, they seem to be the same. So even though it's a Canadian Better Business Bureau, it's pretty widely applicable. Number one. In Canada, we'd say it was the Canadian Revenue Agency collection scam. In the United States, it would be the IRS, Internal Revenue scam. Same deal. What happens is aggressive telemarketers pretending to represent the revenue agency use aggressive and threatening tactics to scare taxpayers into paying a fictitious tax return debt. And they scare people by saying we're going to come out and arrest you unless you pay a portion or the entire amount. And actually, people are seniors seem to seniors seem to be.
The piece of advice to Canadians is the CRA doesn't call you on your phone to say we're going to come and arrest you. It doesn't happen.
They send letters.
Yeah, they send.
They send letters, and they send by recommended mail and everything.
Yeah, and if you get a call that said you have to make immediate payment by credit card or face court charges, jail, or deportation, call the police and report the call. Report the telephone number, because it definitely, any phone call from any revenue agency, that's a scam. Number two is the unclaimed prize scam.
And is that the Nigerian prince?
Yeah, something like that.
My business associate.
Yeah, these are automated phone recordings that pretend to come from legitimate airlines, hotels, vacation booking agents, and things like that. And what they do is lure consumers into believing they were eligible to win a vacation prize. And then when that consumer tries to claim the prize, they're connected to an operator that insists on acquiring personal and credit card information to secure the winnings, to make sure that's who you really are, and so forth.
That happened to me.
It did?
No, it totally did. I totally knew what it was right away, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was like I won a trip or something like that, and it connected me to an operator. Hi, I'm the operator with such blah 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 blah, and they said we're just going to need your credit card number so we can blah blah blah. And I said, well, I don't have a credit card. You don't have a credit card? No, I don't have a credit card. Bang! They hung up right away. That was it.
Yeah. I find usually if you say, well, I'm in bankruptcy proceedings, or I don't have a credit card, that seems to work. That seems to work really well. Number three, and this one is an up and comer, the computer virus telemarketing scam, and this is where consumers are aggressively targeted by phone, mail, email, and online pop-ups, and the fraudsters pretend to represent Microsoft or Apple, and what they do is inform the individual, the consumer, that their computer had been infected with a virus, and in order to fix the problem, the victim is now directed to a website, asked to provide their credit card information as payment, and told to download an antivirus program.
They tried that on us a couple of weeks ago.
I so badly want this to happen to me so that I can troll them. I want to troll them so badly.
Yeah, actually, a woman friend of mine lost about $350.
Ouch.
And then had to go and get her computer, disinfected at a regular computer
Ouch.
repair. But that is an up and comer. That should be number two.
A lot of
us
are not super computer savvy.
Yeah.
And also, it's a bit like being fooled by a mechanic when you don't know anything about cars, right? It's an easy thing.
Yeah. Number 4 is the imposter's phishing scam, and we all know it's PHISH, not an F phishing scam. And no one is really immune from this one. Some computer viruses and phishing scams masquerade as emails or websites of legitimate businesses and organizations. So they use the logo and good name of a reputable charity, nonprofit, bank, whatever. And then scam artists send out a variety of legitimate-looking but fake links that are designed for you to click on them because you think it's your bank, you think it's a charity that you know well, but it's not. So when you click on the fraudsters instantly install malware on your computer or steal your private information such as passwords and account information. So the best thing to do is not to follow links, but to go directly to the website.
I actually got caught by Google on that one.
Oh,
I was doing, as part of my job, I research material safety data sheets.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to get to an industry website, and there was an ad. I made the mistake of clicking on one of the ads at the top, which looked like the website I was going to, instead of the website, which was right below it. I clicked the ad one by accident. Well, when the porn page came up, the porn collage came up on my screen. And of course, I'm in the middle of the office, and my computer is now yelling, saying, "You have a virus." And I had to call IT right away and say, "I think I have a problem."
Yeah, I was looking at my favorite porn site and
and how do you explain this? So then I took the computer to IT. They actually grabbed it and said, "Okay, get it off the network. We're going to clean it." And they plugged it in their station, which is isolated, protected, and from our network internally, and said, "Okay, show us what you did." And I did the exact same search, hit the exact same site, and it took me to the industry webpage. And I'm like, wait a minute, because
Houston, we have a problem.
yeah.
So they checked the computer out and it was clean, but they could see my search history and said, "Yeah, that's where you went, but it took you somewhere else."
Wow. You never know. Computers are an adventure every day.
Okay, Scott, why don't you tell us what really happened now?
Moving on to number 5, which is the vacation rental scam. Ooh. And this is where tourists or people wanting to rent a condo or a home from private homeowners or renters, which is getting to be very popular, suddenly find themselves out of luck and out of money when vacation rentals that they think they've nailed down in their favorite spot turn out to be fake, in disrepair. They promised more than they were offered or unexpectedly canceled with no refund, and that's tough. So the BBB says to avoid vacation nightmares, people need to really do very careful research and work with a reliable professional rental agent if you really don't know the vacation market. That's the best way to do that. Number 6, and I really haven't heard a lot about this one, but it's number 6, and that's the fraudulent kiosk vendor. And in this, the customers report dissatisfaction with products or services provided by transient kiosk vendors that set up at markets, festivals, fairs, malls, and shopping plazas. And you think if it's in a mall, it would be reputable because it goes through, the leading businesses there, and it's professionally managed. But it turns out that some kiosk vendors are actually, can be not legitimate, and they do scam. And if it's a temporary kiosk, they can even use the name of a legitimate business and do knockoffs. So they can trick people into paying for services that were never rendered. So BBB says before you make a purchase, be sure to ask about how you can contact the vendor if you need to, which sometimes, if he's out to take your money, sometimes that information isn't reliable anyway. Or ask about the return and exchange policy, or get a written receipt, so at least you've got some place to turn. That's a tough one because people can get stuck very easily, regardless of the
kiosk vendor. I've never seen.
I've never seen that one. That's scary.
It's scary. Number 7 is a new one. It's called smishing. And smishing is online with your SMS messaging.
Yeah.
And that kind of smishing it works where bogus text messages are sent to victims, purported victims, in attempt to lure them into unknowingly agreeing to accept large monthly charges to their credit cards or downloading a virus or malware onto their smartphone or other mobile devices. So a smishing text often used trending news and entertainment topics or threats of fake billing to lure victims into fraudulent websites. It's pretty much the same thing as a regular phishing, but it uses the SMS rather than email. So you still have to be really careful what you're clicking on to, where you think it's going to be a purchase or something that's going to benefit you. And either way, it just you have to look at things these days as almost everything is a fraud.
Hold on.
And how am I going to protect myself on this purchase, which is a bad
Are you telling me that text that I received was not from Angelina Jolie?
Oh, no, in your case, I'm sure she's a fan.
Now we start a rumor. Angelina Jolie's listening to Left of the Valley.
Yeah, but online, I think you really have to protect yourself against fake. Not that you have to think everything's a fraud. I may have misspoken or gone over the line on being overly careful, but better cautious. Number 8 is the online stranger danger. And this is where people who use online secondhand shopping sites and social media sites, they find themselves getting ripped off or giving out private information to strangers. And the rip-offs usually include misrepresentation of the product or purchasing fake or broken products, paying too much, paying up front, and then never receiving the item. Sometimes these things happen on eBay. Sometimes they happen on other sites where things are for sale and you don't really know that site. eBay has got people occasionally, but eBay is really pretty good. eBay is like, I guess 80-90% okay. But things do happen, and you really have to be careful that if you buy something that's a fake, that you've got the eBay or a big company to stand behind and helping you.
Does that include these scams where you have where you're putting something online, you're selling yourself something online, and people say, "Hey, can you send it to me and I'll send you a check," kind of thing?
Well, those are the old Nigerian scams, which are still where you purchase something, they send you a check for above the amount, and they say, "Well, we inadvertently sent you a check, so if you just deposit it, you keep the deposit, and then just send us the regular amount. We're sorry for the error. Put this fake." And these Nigerian scammers, and actually started in Nigeria, but they're all over the place now in these little cells, they can now make checks that are so legitimate looking that the banks, can't detect that they're fraudulent.
Wow.
Yeah, they're really good. They either have people who are actually working in places where they print the checks so that they are legitimate. They just rip them off and then print out.
It's pretty bad when you get a check that the government can't even find out.
Yeah, no, that happened, and people, were trying to sue the banks, and the banks were saying, "No, we're not responsible. You were responsible for that check." Yeah, that's
why checks have kind of fallen out of favor anyway, because it's too hard to.
But that was a huge scam about 10 years ago because people didn't know a lot about it, and there were a lot of underground groups working to kind of eliminate them online.
Not quite what I was talking about, though, because what I was talking about is this is last year. I was selling a car online. I went to Kijiji.
Right.
And all of a sudden I get this message saying, "Oh no, we're interested in that thing you're selling there. Is it possible?" And what tipped me off is it possible for you to send it to us through the mail? And I'm thinking, it's a car. You can't send a car through the mail.
Yeah.
And this is what tipped me off to the whole thing. Is it possible for you to send it through the mail? We'll send you a check, blah, blah, blah. So this is where you realize it's a scam. But even if you're legitimately trying to sell something online, you get these people fishing for your business.
Yeah,
Sure.
but they would send, let's say you were asking $6,000 for your car. Well, they would send you the check for $7,000 and say, oh, but at that point you've sent them the car.
Yes.
So now you're out the car and
the money.
that, and then the bank is saying you've ripped us off. So how do we know that it's actually a third party that you got this check from, or you're trying to rip us off as an individual?
This person obviously didn't do the research. You can't send out a Nissan Sentra through the mail.
Well, you can. It costs a lot.
On a container ship.
Yeah. Anyway, number 9 is the Helpful Harry or Helpful Helen scam, where homeowners and renters have found themselves in hot water after hiring helpful neighbors, local teenagers, or in the area contractors to help them with home, yard, garden, vehicle maintenance. And in some cases, people are just ripped off, and others, the work was completed. The work that was completed is of poor quality, and it costs more to repair, never finished. And in other instances, accidental injuries left the homeowner with unexpected lawsuits, guilt, and unexpected medical bills. So BBB says before you hire anyone to help you with your home yard vehicle maintenance, make sure they're qualified to do so. Sometimes it's innocent, but sometimes it's somebody knocks at your door and saying, I'm in the area, trimming trees. Can I give you an estimate, or trimming or roofing or something? And they give you a good price, and then you've got to do it all over again. It's not necessarily your real neighbor, or they say we're in the neighborhood, and so forth. Number 10, counterfeit merchandise, which is used to be a big rip-off at flea markets, where you think you're getting, something by a head design, not a head designer, but a well-known designer, and it turns out it's actually a rip-off made in a
brand new iPhone for $100. How can I lose?
But so the internet and flea markets are filled with stores and kiosks and auction. There are also auction sites that market, very alluring, cheaply priced counterfeit products, and they're being pitched as the real thing. Gucci handbags, Rolex watches, they don't come cheap or at a bargain, regardless of what the sale price is. So it's buyer beware before you buy any
the last
product
Gucci handbag I had just had one small flaw. It only had one C in the name. Right?
I didn't know you were a Gucci man.
Yeah, that's a joke, son. Don't you get it? I made a funny, son, and you're not laughing.
Which was really funny because years and years ago, when I lived in Texas, I lived in a border town where we'd cross the border and go to the little Mexican towns, which are just, streets and streets filled with merchandise of various kinds, and it's wonderful. It's a lot of fun. And the jewelry stores down there have fake Rolexes, but they market them as fake Rolexes. They're 100% fake Rolexes, but they're so well done and they look so beautiful that you buy one of these watches for $20. They look great, and you tell everybody else, I've got here's my Rolex. So those kind of fake merchandises are fun. Those are good. But if you actually believe they're a Rolex, where it's a cheap copy now, something different.
Yeah, when I went to Mexico a couple of years ago, I bought this nice little necklace. It was a bit of a pendant thing, and it had my name written in Incan, or Aztec or Maya. No, I'm not sure. One of those languages, which is essentially symbol, out of silver, right? So I ordered it, and it looked like it was a very nice jewelry place. The counters and the safe and all that, and of course I'm wearing this, and within 2 months, those silver letters just fell right off. And of course Mexico prides itself a lot on their silver and their silver mining, and I'm looking at this saying, oh my God, you got to be shitting me, right? And it's like I didn't pay a fortune for it, but I did pay I think it was like $125 for it. I was like kind of feel bad now.
Ouch.
Yeah. Anyway, it's one of those.
I got the big yawn going on here.
Yeah.
You were about to say something.
Anyway, we're all done with buyer beware, and everybody's going to watch out. Everybody's going to be more careful. I've done my civic duty, and we can move on. What's next?
Okay, let's move on. In that case, we'll move on to our segment that we always like to do. Another brilliant moment brought to you by religion. Okay, we got 3 stories. I guess we'll start with this one here. Now, in a Christian school where the love of Jeebus can get you expelled, we've heard about them kicking out students that were openly gay. Now, I've heard about them kicking out students that their parents were gay, but what happened to little Sunny Cal was news even to us. Timberlake Christian School in Virginia is essentially forcing her out because she, wait for it, doesn't look feminine enough.
What?
Now, you're probably aware that Timberlake Christian School is religious, Bible-believing institution providing education in a distinctly Christian environment. Quote, we believe that unless Sunny, as well as her family, clearly understands that God has made her female, and her dress and behavior need to follow suit with her God-ordained identity. That means that TCS is not the best place for her future education.
What was she wearing?
Well, she's an 8-year-old kid.
I know, but what was she wearing that she wasn't
Probably
feminine?
a pair of jeans. It's an 8-year-old kid.
Well, the fact that they put that much stock in her being feminine enough
Yeah.
tells me that they're sexist and probably not.
Of course, it's a Christian school, duh.
Ta-da! Probably not
she
the best
didn't fit
place for her
proper
education.
role.
I mean, her grandfather said, how do you label a child, an 8-year-old child, or discriminate against an 8-year-old child? It just doesn't happen, right?
Well, apparently it does.
I mean, to pick on it, to take a little 8-year-old child and take her self-esteem and just, crack it over your knee like you're breaking a tree branch. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just like whammo. That's horrible.
And that's horrible for her psychologically, for sure. I mean, there's a quote here. How do you tell a child when she wants to wear pants and a shirt, like every other kid, to go out and play in the mud and so forth? No, you tell her, no, you can't. You got to go wear a pink bow in your hair, and you got to make sure your hair is long and get your hair to grow long. And how do you do that? I mean, how do you do something like that?
Well, I mean, the question is, are girls restricted to wearing dresses and she came in pants, or she could wear pants but they were jeans and not little fluffy pants? I don't know.
I saw a picture of her. I mean, she looks like she looks a bit tomboyish, right? She's got the short hair and all that. But I mean, she's 8, for Christ's sake. She's 8.
And again, putting these kinds of restrictions on people is just not. It's not
It's
healthy.
cruel. It borders on. Does that border on child abuse, or am I making it up?
The church. Wait a minute.
Worse.
The church and child abuse. I don't know if there's a connection there.
And of course, Timberlake School is, by the way, a stone throws away from Jerry Falwell's Liberty University. Coincidence? I think not.
Oh my!
Wow.
Send her to us for a month. We'll take care of her.
Poor kid. Okay, another story. This is from a Christian leader. God will curse the kids and grandkids of anyone who criticizes Donald Trump.
The power of Christ compels you!
So we're screwed, apparently.
I welcome that curse. Bring it on. I welcome it.
I'm still waiting for God to strike me down with lightning. It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, exactly.
I've threatened that one a few times. Well, if there's a God, I'm going to walk outside. I did this to a Christian once. I'm going to walk outside and I want him to strike me down with lightning. I think God sucks. And I walked outside and guess what? No lightning happened.
His aim is awful.
That's like Ron
some poor guy in Florida got hit with lightning instead.
That's like Ron Reagan's ad, for Freedom from Religion Foundation, not afraid of burning in hell. It's the same. Same thing.
Yeah, not afraid of burning in hell.
This is Mary Colbert explaining that Donald Trump, she was on the Jim Bakker show, and she explained that Donald Trump is part of God's master plan. Now, I just love God's master plan because it's so fucked up. And anyone who opposes the president will be cursed. And then for just good measure, she extended the curse to the critics' children and grandchildren. This is a quote. It is not that Donald Trump is all that perfect of a guy. We all know he's not. And we know that he's not necessarily perfect in every way that we would like. No shit, right? That's not how God works. He works through the one he chooses. We don't choose them. We all have to do is recognize that when you them, and when you recognize a chosen one and you have the discernment to know that they've been chosen and know that that's the will of God, then your life will be blessed. I wonder if they had that same rhetoric when Obama was president.
I would assume she wasn't one of those marching for science yesterday. Just it's a wild guess, but I just doubt whether she was out there.
I'm still trying to figure out where the subservience equates to a happy life. I mean, subservient to God, so you follow the will of God. Doesn't that make you a slave?
It does. It does. And
I'm not going to be a slave to anyone.
It's one of the saddest things. It's like I believe it's. Was it Dan Barker? The atheist Dan Barker that said when somebody says what's the meaning of life, there is no God, is akin to saying, if there is no master, whose slave shall I be?
Oh.
Yes.
And I think that's very profound.
It is.
That is. That's really good.
There's a T-shirt.
I like that.
Absolutely.
But the meaning of life, we all know, is 42.
And another story. Now, when you think of religious idiot, ex-politician in the U.S., that could be anybody. It could be anybody, right? If you add female anti-gay in front of it, there's one that comes in mind, particularly in mind. Former Republican Michelle Bachmann hasn't gotten any more sensible since leaving the office. She was speaking on a radio show, Understanding the Times, with Jan Markell, which does nothing but advance their understanding of the times. Bachmann explained how liberals are making it easier for the Antichrist to gain power. This is our fault, guys. We're making it easier for Satan to come in.
Good. I welcome our new overlord and master.
Well, this reporter was possibly a little hasty earlier. Would like to reaffirm his allegiance to this country and its human president. May not be perfect, but it's still the best government we have. For now.
When I see him, I'll bow to him. Right. I don't have any problem. I'm not going to be bowing to anyone. So
she goes on and she says, she said that Donald Trump's opponent, much like the people who built the Tower of Babel, are rebelling against God to bring about the creation of a man-made one world system. And Scripture tells us that the end times, that is what the Antichrist will be, and he will be part of the one world system. So apparently, if you oppose Donald Trump, you're really trying to bring the Antichrist.
Oh, man.
These people who reject Judeo-Christian truth and instead want to insert and usurp control of all of our lives with a global economic and political government, she said. So I guess we should do the Christian thing and reject refugees who need the help and tell poor people they're on their own when it comes to healthcare.
That's right, because that's so Christian. That follows their values so well.
Oh my.
Bunch of hypocrites.
Yeah.
It's so funny because it's become so apparent to me now, especially in the U.S. politics, that they will say anything and they will quote the Bible whichever way as long as it suits the political agenda. And
Have they ever been
so
now,
transparent.
there's something we should look. Excuse me. There's something we should look into. Has it ever been done where they used, or someone used, the same Bible quote both ways, both supporting a point of view and supporting the opposite of that same point of view?
The exact same quote. The exact same. I don't know.
Has it ever been done? Because I'm pretty positive that the way it works, it could be.
We should get our friend Chris.
We should start looking into that.
Our really good Christian friend Chris, who we really like and respect.
Well, yeah, but
we should ask him that question and see if he's scholarly enough. I know he's scholarly enough to answer that question for us.
Because we all get the Bible. I mean the whole thing supports slavery. It really does. And the New Testament didn't come along and abolish those rules. The New Testament supported those rules. They'll tell you it doesn't, but in the words of Jesus himself, he wasn't there to get rid of the old rules. He was there to basically enhance things.
Yeah.
And uphold, right. And so, but then they'll, in the same sentence, they'll tell you, well, it doesn't mean that. So they give you another rendition of what they think it means. And it's like, well, so now I'm questioning. Have there been any cases where we can actually see one religious leader using the quote one way and another religious leader using the quote the opposite way?
I don't know. That's a great question. We ought to pose.
I don't even know how to look it up, but I mean,
how
would you research that?
Yeah,
I'm positive there's going to be people out there that might know the answer.
That's right.
That's an idea for a show.
There we go.
Okay, so we're going to go on pause for now, and then we're going to come back with Cara Santa Maria. So stay with us.
Do you know where Saskatchewan is? Probably not. It's in Canada. If you do, you might know a city named Regina. In Regina, there's a studio. And in that studio, there are, at least once a month, a bunch of skeptical atheist geeks and goofballs who get together to do a podcast. We are the Brainstorm crew, and we're trying to help spread a bit of reason and critical thinking while still having fun. Never taking things too seriously, but still not accepting everything we're told. We go through different topics, exploring them in depth, and often disagreeing. We try to stick to provable facts, and we never trust in myth. That's why we say we're woo-free since 2013. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Spreaker under Brainstorm, or check out our website, brainstormblog.net. I can't promise you'll always agree with us, but I can promise you'll have fun listening to us.
If your skepticism is socially conscious and doesn't take itself too seriously, you might like life, the universe, and everything else.
People like Ray Comfort are fond of saying, what use is half a wing, right? Have you ever seen a fucking penguin?
Life, the universe, and everything else. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else.
I don't know, Zune? Is that still a thing?
Hi, I'm the Supreme Irreverend Dr. Randy Tyson from the Legion of Reason Diversion. Join me and my co-hosts, Christine Shelska, Twyla, and Nate Phelps, as we explore issues at the intersection of atheism, humanism, and skepticism. Topics range from alternative medicine to the interference of religion in public policy. We often have special guests to help us understand the topic du jour. Previous guests include biologist Jerry Coyne, ex-Muslim author Ali Rizvi, philosopher Peter Boghossian, and the late physicist Victor Stanger. You can watch us on the Legion of Reason YouTube channel or subscribe to the audio version through your favorite podcatchers such as iTunes or Stitcher. And don't forget to like the Legion of Reason Facebook page.
Whoever is led to believe that species are mutable will do good service by conscientiously expressing his conviction. For only thus can the load of prejudice by which this subject is overwhelmed be removed.
So what you know about natural selection? Go ahead and ask a question and see where the answer gets you. Try being passive-aggressive and try smashing.
Okay, with me we have the host of Talk Nerdy, and she's also one of the co-hosts of the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. She's a snappy dresser and a snazzy dancer, Cara Santa Maria. Hi, Cara, how you doing?
Hey there, how are you?
I'm good. You know, you're very popular south of the 49th. You might not be as well known up north, up here. If you'd be so kind to give us the Reader's Digest version of who Cara Santa Maria is.
Oh, sure. I guess when people ask me what I do, the main answer I would give is that I'm a science communicator. And what that really is an umbrella term for all of the different freelance work that I do. I host a lot of television shows here in the United States. Sometimes they air outside of the U.S., sometimes they don't. I also, as you said, host my own podcast, Talk Nerdy. We just did the 150th episode. I say we, I.
Congratulations.
And, yeah, thank you. And I'm one of the co-hosts of the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. And I do some web series and things like that. But generally speaking, the vast majority of the work that I do is in science communication, so working to improve science literacy and understanding.
And it's totally, absolutely needed, especially in your country right now as we speak. What is Talk Nerdy's message? What are you trying to accomplish with that podcast?
You know, I started it when I was working on a television show that was a live daily show that really sucked up all my time. And in a lot of ways, I don't think was a very healthy work environment for myself as a woman and for many of my other female colleagues, actually. And while I was working on that show, it was recommended to me by Joe Rogan, actually, that I start a podcast because he said, you know, it's all yours. You say what you want to say. You are your own producer. You determine what the message is. And so for me, in a lot of ways, it's been kind of an outlet where I can really explore the things that are interesting to me. And it ebbs and flows with my own mind. It's a one-on-one interview show. So each week I have a different person join me on the show. Sometimes they're in studio. Sometimes it's remote if they don't live in the LA area. And it started as a science show. It's listed as a science show. I often interview scientists or science communicators, but sometimes I interview people that work in the industry out here. Sometimes I interview people that work in social justice, civil liberties. Sometimes I interview people kind of the atheist community or the skeptic community. It really runs the gamut, but I mostly focus on the things that I find interesting.
Indeed, you do. Now, speaking of science education, us up here in Canada, we keep a very close eye on the U.S. because you guys are our biggest trading partner. And I must admit, I'm quite concerned by what I see down in the States. What would you think the status of education within the public is when it comes to regards to science?
Yeah, I think it's been a constant struggle from the time I was born. I grew up in Texas, which is a very conservative part of the United States. Now I live in Los Angeles, which is kind of the exact opposite of where I grew up. And so I've seen all sides of this problem. I don't think that we invest in education the way that we should. Obviously, the current administration is definitely a downturn. I think things were looking good during the Obama administration, and a lot of people were hopeful. A lot of people were excited. We were starting to see some improvements in our educational infrastructure. But there's also been a long-standing public and quite embarrassing battle between the ultra-conservative religious right and science education as a whole here in the United States. And that continues to this day. We see anti-evolution rhetoric. We see anti-global warming rhetoric, and it is prevalent in some schools, depending on what state you live in, and also in the federal government, which is quite frightening.
Yeah, absolutely. You see some of the stats. I was reading a stat the other day. They say a quarter of all Americans think that the Earth is actually a center of the solar system and not the sun. Amazing stats. And for you to be a science educator in that area in the States must be quite a challenge.
Yeah, I focus on what we can do. Obviously, I don't think that I am here, and I don't think that the work that I'm doing is intended for changing, the core passions of like somebody who's anti-science, somebody who has an agenda-driven viewpoint that, for example, the Earth is flat, or an agenda-driven viewpoint that climate change is a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese or something. That's obviously not my target audience. But what I am interested in doing is helping to ensure that when scientists do interesting work, that it's communicated to the public in a reliable and factual way. Sometimes scientists can be a little bit isolated in their ivory towers. It's a little bit separate, I guess, from public understanding. We've also had in recent years a real tough time with the press, with kind of having a more advertising-driven press, and because of that, we've seen a lot of science desks shut down. So there are many more like general assignment reporters trying to write about science and don't always have the tools to do so. So I just try to keep a kind of an eagle eye on what is being written about in science and whether it's being written about fairly and effectively, and try to kind of right some of the wrongs if I notice them to keep the public informed. There's a lot of, there's a lot of kind of nefarious dealings out there with specifically people that are agenda driven. Yes. I just want to make sure that, what we know to be real facts, not alternative facts, are communicated appropriately.
Now, a lot of science kind of suffers from a certain image of being dry and boring. Everybody remembers the old image of Carl Sagan saying billions and billions and years. And how do you communicate science to make it interesting to the public? Do you have a certain trick? Do you have a certain target you hit?
So I don't generally focus on children. I have had some fun projects where I got to work with kids, but for the most part, my audience is adults. I think when I've looked at my demographics on the podcast and on some of the shows that I've worked on, I've noticed that my demographics tend to skew sort of young adults, so like 18 to 35, maybe sometimes 35 to 45. A lot of young people and young people who themselves have young children. And I think that one way or one reason, I guess, that does seem to be the core demographic is because I think it's important to just be a normal person and to talk about science using normal words. I don't censor myself.
So,
my podcast has an explicit rating on it.
Yes.
And I think that it's important to just speak the language of individual people. When I teach science communication or give talks about science communication, and I have like a few, hard and fast rules of thumb. The second one above number one is always know your audience, which is very important. But the second one that I always say is never underestimate the intelligence of your audience, but always underestimate their vocabulary. Just because somebody doesn't have the same lexicon because they haven't worked in science, so their jargon words could turn them off, doesn't mean that they can't understand the core concepts. And so I think it's really important not to, as many producers would ask you to do, quote unquote, dumb it down. That is not the way that I operate.
Oh, good. Well, I was about to ask if you sometimes need to jazz it up because, or is it the message is compelling enough for your audience to understand and get attached to it?
Well, yeah, I think that I'm lucky enough because I'm freelance that I can, work with the stories that I find compelling. It's much different in a newsroom if you are a science journalist and you're tasked with writing stories about everything that's coming across on the wire, because it's true, sometimes the stories may be more dry, or they may be, I guess another big problem is that they may feel a little bit esoteric, kind of like not always news you can use. But for me, I get to kind of choose the articles that I already find really interesting. And so I don't think I need to really jazz up the science. And I think that I'm wary about doing that because sometimes that's where the real problems with pseudo-journalism come in, is that I think an individual reporter, in an effort to jazz it up, might actually extend it to the point where it's no longer true. And that can be quite dangerous. But there's so much fascinating science happening all around us all the time, and it's so incredibly compelling. Being able to just, dig deep and talk about the fundamental underpinnings of new discoveries and how they relate to humankind and the human experience, I think it draws people in. Sometimes it's just a matter of being able to do long form content, being able to do a podcast where you can sit down and really talk about something and you don't have to speak in sound bites.
Yeah, exactly. So since you're a freelance, quickly, your favorite story recently?
Oh, like my favorite kind of science article that's
Sure, something that's been, that's drawn you to and you find fascinating.
So I actually covered a story on Skeptic's Guide recently, but I'm not sure if it ever made it to air because we always record way more than actually ends up on the podcast. But I covered a story recently, I think it was in Poland, where researchers decided to replicate Stanley Milgram's famous experiment. Have you heard of the famous Milgram experiment? It's fascinating.
It rings a bell, but you'll have to refresh me.
Sure. So it's this experiment in which the researchers had, they brought in the subjects, but they also had actors. And the subjects would come in and they would sit at a board where there were different buttons they could push. And the buttons represented different
the Nazi experiment.
Different voltages. Yes.
Oh, yes.
And on the inside of the room, there was actually an actor. Of course, the subject did not know that was an actor. And this whole experiment was about whether or not individuals really listen to and do what an authority figure tells them. So at the very beginning, they're told that they can leave at any time. But later in the experiment, they say, okay, that person got the answer wrong. You need to shock them. And they'd say, oh, I don't know if I want to. And they say, you must continue. The experiment requires that you continue. And an overwhelming majority of individuals shocked the actor, who they didn't know was an actor, in the original Milgram experiment, all the way up to what they considered was a deadly shock. Like it had XXX written on the board, and throughout the experiment, the actor would be screaming in agony and eventually would go quiet, and they would still continue to push that button. In Poland, because of ethical considerations, because this experiment was done, half a century ago, in Poland, they did not refer to the final shock as being a deadly shock, just a very painful shock, but the results were similar. The vast majority of individuals continued to shock the actor who they thought was not an actor, all the way to the end.
Fascinating, because this experiment was originally played because they at the time, after World War II, they was said that only 1 in 1,000 people would be cruel enough to be a Nazi. And that's what inspired this.
Because there was a trial after World War II where an individual, I can't remember his name right now, was on trial for these atrocities, and his defense was that he was just following orders, that he was, being told to do these things, and the natural kind of progression would be that you would follow those orders. And so Stanley Milgram was interested in this. Was this individual different, or is there something core about being human that makes us want to follow orders, even if it goes against our own ethical beliefs? And so, it's an important experiment. Every psychology student learns about it in Psych 101. So it's very interesting to see that it was replicated 50 years later in an in a European country where it was never done before. And we saw the same results. Actually, in some ways it was worse in the Polish experiment, but in some ways it was not as bad because the scales were different.
I'm just shocked that people wouldn't clue into that experiment because it's such a well-known piece of history, that experiment. So I'm just shocked that they would actually be able to find some people that didn't know about this.
Oh, yeah. I think that probably individuals, like I said, who have taken, college-level psychology class have heard of it, but I would be surprised if the general public knows much about it.
Wow. Okay. Switching us to something else here. Science is often accused of being a bit like a good old boys club. Now, you yourself as a woman, do you think that we have a misogyny problem with science?
Well, I don't want to paint it with a broad brush. I think that we have institutional problems across the board in North America, but also in other parts of the world. There are systemic problems with, sure, I guess you could use the word misogyny, but I would say also with gender parity. So science as a whole historically does not have nearly the representation of women or of, minorities, people of color for that matter. White men historically have had the vast majority of faculty positions, of tenured faculty positions in universities. Now, there have been rapid changes within recent years, and there's a lot of good evidence out there and a lot of good research into why this is the case, into how we can affect change within these institutions, but it wildly varies from institution to institution. I think that misogyny as a whole is a human problem. It is not a science problem. Science is simply reflective of what we see in a lot of different industries. But I am excited to see that it is on the tips of people's tongues now, that people are not afraid to talk about it. I try to publish articles or share articles on social media as often as I can when a new study does come out. And we are seeing more and more parity at the undergraduate level. When you look at large institutions in the United States, depending on the science field, you are seeing closer gender parity. I have many friends who went to Caltech, which is close to where I live. It's in Pasadena, a top-tier institution here in the United States, and a heavily kind of math, science, and engineering school. And at the undergrad level, at least, I do think Caltech is approaching gender parity. As you get into the graduate level, and then as you move into faculty positions, that number becomes more and more disparate, and that's really what we need to work on. But when you say specifically misogyny, I would say that in a lot of ways, I think that that's a generational problem. Sure, there's always going to be young misogynistic assholes who find their way into positions of power, of course. But I do think that there's kind of a lack of awareness that you see sometimes in the older set that you don't quite see as often in the younger set. I just think that the younger group of scholars is more aware of these issues.
So there's good hope then. That's great.
I hope so. I mean, I don't think that it's moving quite fast enough, but I do think we're on a better trajectory. I don't think it's going in the wrong direction, at least.
Excellent. So what advice would you give to, I should say, younger women, because you're very young yourself, going into science?
Well, thank you for that. I don't think I'm as young as you think I am.
No, but I'm French. I just compliment women naturally. I'm sorry.
I think that young women who are interested in science, I mean, the biggest piece of advice that I would give you is that you should try, because I think a lot of times what happens to young girls, and it happened to myself as well, I ended up in science in a very roundabout way. It was never my intention, and it definitely wasn't my core goal when I was young, but I was quite interested in it at a very young age. I just didn't think that I was good at it. I didn't think that I was very good at math. Math was hard for me. And because it was hard for me, I saw that as a barrier. I saw it. Math didn't come easily for me, so I thought, oh, I'm not cut out for this, which is, math doesn't come easily generally for many people. It's a skill that you have to learn. And I think that different people, and boys and girls, are also socialized differently to talk about their skill levels differently. So oftentimes you may be in a mixed classroom when you're young, and the boys will talk about how easy the problems are, and the girls will struggle, and they'll think, oh, well, I guess that means this is easier for boys. It may be equally difficult, but the boys are more boisterous about it being easy. And we've seen a lot of good evidence to support the fact that stereotype threat, thinking you're not going to be good at something ahead of time, actually can induce negative outcomes. So if you think you're not going to do well on the test, you might actually do more poorly on the test. So I guess my biggest advice, this is quite roundabout, is that just because it's not super easy out the gate doesn't mean that you shouldn't pursue it. And if you enjoy it and it's interesting and it's fun for you, keep working at it, because it's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be a challenge, but you can do it. Anybody can become a scientist. You just have to focus and you have to try. It's not out of reach of anyone.
Fantastic advice. Well, thank you so much for your time, Cara. And, the mic is all yours. Be shameless. Go ahead, plug yourself, lay it out. What's coming up for Cara Santa Maria?
Oh, that's so nice. I don't know. I would say generally just reach out anytime via Twitter. That's the easiest way to find me, at Cara Santa Maria. And of course, my website is also carasantamaria.com. And that's where you can click through to Talk Nerdy. You can subscribe there. You can find it on iTunes or any other, podcast reader. That's where you can find my work in the SGU and all my other work in television and the web. So yeah, just say hi. I'm hanging out online all the time.
Sounds good. Are we ever going to see you up here in Canada?
Oh, I hope so. I do love Canada. I actually have a good friend who is a Canadian science communicator, Karen Bondar. She lives up there, and I visit with her quite often, but more often she comes down to LA for different television jobs that she works on. I have been to Canada a few times before. I did some work at the Perimeter Institute for theoretical physics in Waterloo.
Okay.
And I've been to Vancouver a couple of times for shoots. But Canada's a big place. I need to come back because there's a lot of cool places I could be visiting.
Yeah, we're just about an hour away from Vancouver up here, so.
Oh, love it.
Next
love
time
it. So
we're
we
up
on the
here,
same time zone?
Yes, we are. So next time you're up here, we'll buy you a drink.
Oh, thank you.
So before I let you go, can I get you to do me one little favor? Can I get you to say, "Hi, I'm Cara Santa Maria, and I took a left at the Valley."
Of course. Here we go. Hey guys, I'm Cara Santa Maria, and I took a left at the Valley.
And that was Cara Santa Maria. Wonderful little interview, and she does a lot of great work for feminism and women in science, and we need more people like her.
That's right. That's doing pretty good for a little Texas girl, isn't it? That's right. One of the good things that Texas produced.
You don't get to say that very often, do we?
No.
Oh, fantastic.
She and I.
Oh, well, thank you so much, guys, for joining us here today on the show. You can follow us on leftatthevalley.com. You can follow us on Facebook. Follow us at Twitter at LATV Podcast. You can send us an email at leftatthevalley@outlook.com. Coming up next week, we should be talking, we were talking about the Wayward Atheist earlier on. Actually, Dan from the Great White North is coming on the show next week, so we'll be talking with him live. That should be fun. Our old friends from Dr. Randy Tyson and the Legion of Reason are coming back on the show.
Oh, they're always fun.
Yes, and we'll be talking about the regressive left.
Oh.
That's a big
Wow.
Big issue for him, and that should be interesting for us to talk about as well. And we have the Bible geek, Robert M. Price, that will actually show up on the show, and that is May 13th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Powerhouse shows coming up.
Powerhouse shows coming up, and I'm sure we'll have some more and better things, and we'll just keep working for you guys.
We may have to go to Agassiz and get a cup of coffee just to kind of steel ourselves and work ourselves up, to
There we go.
deal with all these power people coming on.
We'll just have to do the show from there from now on, I guess. Maybe.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Excellent. Anything else, guys? That's it?
No, just a fun show. It was
Nothing to say?
Great to have our Texas guest on today. Former Texas guest. From Texas. I'm going to stop now.
Oh, thank you guys. Until next time.
Contradicts history, denies evolution, hates science, promotes mystery. I'd rather see the truth than to bask in my own ignorance. Rather be alone than surrounded by damn idiots. As long as there's a breath in my body, you can bet your last dollar I'll be working hard fighting this problem. Religion is a disease, it comes from culture, only true on a regional scale. Science is universal. Are you to say that Horus isn't real, but Jesus is? Or Zeus, Thor, Mithra, Vishnu, you don't believe in them? I think the reason is apparent. You do what you're told and believe in the God assigned by your parents. I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith in unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist. Atheist. I'm an atheist. Atheist. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. Now let me take a sec. Don't mean to sound so hateful, but I swear to God, pun intended, I find it disgraceful that thousands of children are raped by priests, and since they're holy men of God, they get away scot-free. And the Pope does his very best to keep it on the hush. Don't wanna affect business, he loves money too much. We know that they love the kids, but how the fuck can we protect them while they planning to molest them? We teaching them to respect them. Respect them? Fuck that. The system is broke down, working backwards, and the only action or tactic I plan to practice now is to attack them. The parties of God's hands are bloodstained, millions of murders by believers, and they're all in God's name. And let me take a sec, don't mean to sound so hateful, but I swear to God, pun intended, I find it disgraceful that many atheists are told to be quiet. You're not alone, speak your mind, time to let it be known. I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith in unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist.